If we haven't met yet, my name is Gemma, and I am the founder of Next Generation Guatemala. And especially for the new folks here, I want to share the story of how an idea grew into a community of friends from 17 different countries. After my first trip to Guatemala, there was still so much I wanted to learn about adoption in Guatemala and Guatemalan culture, and I really wanted to learn it from other Guatemalan adoptees. Through my final paper for my study abroad, I learned that there were at least 29,000 of us adopted from Guatemala between the years of 1999 and 2007, but that didn't account for everyone going as far back as 1960. And the idea for Next Generation Guatemala was really that we are this totally unique generation of both international but also full Guatemalan citizens by birth. And I found this out in the immigration office in Guatemala City, where my class and I all went to renew our travel visas after 90 days. And I filled out the same form as they did. We made a whole day trip out of it. We stood in line for like ever. And when it was my turn, the officer at the desk was like, what are you doing here? Or like, why are you here doing this? You don't have to do this. I will never forget till this day. He said, Guatemala never forgets its children. And I thought, no one in my program or in my family, knew this, and I think could have really told me this at the time, and that these inherent rights as a Guatemalan citizen were still mine to claim. And so that's always felt really cool to me that, again, we're full Guatemalan citizens by birth, but also international citizens through our adoptive country. So I thought about what I would have liked to have had available to me when I was, growing into my identity, exploring my roots and all that stuff. I would have really benefited from having a community to tap into for advice and support and friendship around all of this. I would have loved an introduction to my culture from that community who understood where I was coming from. And I would have liked a more seamless transition into the country and to my family. That's unique to this generation's, connection to it. So I made a basic website just outlining what I would have liked to have seen, what I would have liked to have had growing up. And I didn't want to build it around my specific story, because I think as a founding principle, NGG has always been about all of our stories, of which mine is just one. And so in a time before Instagram, before Snapchat, I collected the stories of other Guatemalan adoptees wherever I could find them. And at the time, I was working at the investigative reporting program here on campus, and I think that actually influenced a lot of how obsessive I became about finding the stories, finding other adoptees, So I scanned through Google News, and whenever there was a story about an adoptee, I would post it, or through Twitter, Facebook, to showcase a collective narrative of all the different ways it means to be adopted from Guatemala. And you can still see those stories on our public page and in the event page for this live. Gosh, a huge thanks to all of them going back from 2012. I think Kara, the first story here, is probably out of college now. And I think her story at the time was she had just started high school and was supporting her orphanage, the orphanage that she was brought to in Guatemala City. And gosh, there have been so many really cool stories that have brought a lot of people here. That said, our generation as a whole has never really been easily identifiable. Most of us don't identify on social media as, I'm adopted from Guatemala, and it's made it really hard to know how or where to target ads, because again, we're all around the world, all across the United States, and there's never been one point of reference to say where we all were and how many of us were in each country that we were adopted to. And I don't believe that NGG would have been a successful nonprofit for a community that wasn't defined and that I didn't know the needs of. So really these first 7 years has been solely devoted to identifying and bringing us together. It's been a largely behind the scenes effort of just scrolling on different social media channels, scrolling through like my 23andMe DNA results and identifying adoptees with social media accounts, sending them messages and inviting them in. So I want to recognize these efforts because we wouldn't be together without them. We've been able to identify and map, thanks to Taya for her idea to map us all out across 17 different countries, with the 17th being Italy. And for the 49,000, roughly 49,000 of us to come, these efforts to map our community have built the framework that they're going to be able to see and take advantage of going forward, you know, to be able to just identify the community near them and connect with them. With all of us together in one space, the next thing that felt important to me was to learn what the community was interested in talking about and doing together in this space. We've had really, really cool discussions over the years. We've shared our collective opinions about topics in adoption and on Guatemalan culture through our polls. So thank you again so much for sharing your stories with the whole community here. And in early 2018, a graphic design student from the Pennsylvania College of Technology joined the group, and I asked if he would be interested in redesigning our logo for us, and he said yes. So over the last few months, we've been talking over like ideas, brainstorming what we wanted it to look like, and we created a new concept for it. The logo is an illustration of Guatemala's national bird, the quetzal, and it represents like a natural and organic, like of Guatemalan country, of the country, pride in our community, culture, and country that isn't nationalistic, because we represent so many other nationalities besides just Guatemalan. It's not political, because we also, you know, probably represent the whole political spectrum as well. And it's unique to this generation, which celebrates the diversity of our community. And in his words, it is an expression of self-identity for those who share the experience and ideas about who we are. It is the modern representation of Guatemalan adoptees living in the now and growing towards the future. So a huge thank you to Joey Morin for designing our new logo to represent us. Oh wait, and I'm wearing the shirt. So this is the logo. So next, part of our community's history is that not all of our adoptions were made in the right way, right? And that doesn't mean everybody. And the mission of NGG is definitely not one of fear-mongering, of vengeance, or of blind justice, but the truth, some of the realities of our beginnings are going to impact some of us here, some of us to come, and as they grow up and decide to explore their roots or start searches. And some of our community members are gonna wanna talk about that, which I think we'd be lucky to hear. I don't believe, you know, the worst of how some of us may have come to be adopted is the last word on the total Guatemalan adoptee experience, right? Especially based on what, you know, if you just scroll through the group and see like what people are interested in and excited about, like this isn't a doom and gloom space by any means. But at the same time, the topic is something that I don't think we should be afraid to acknowledge as part of our collective adoption history, Guatemalan adoption history, just as much as our reunions or trips back to Guatemala are also a part of it. And embracing sort of the entire spectrum of our experience, I believe, is required for us, for this organization to be alive. You know, if we push out what is unpleasant to feel or acknowledge, you know, we don't get to be a fully living organization, community, everything. And yeah, if you think about the youngest member of NGG was born in 2007. How old am I? And we have 49,000 more to meet, you know, so there's no end to what we can bring together for them and for our community here. And there are still fellow adoptees from around the world that we still need to meet. And Guatemalan events across the United States and probably the world that we could participate in as a group. So we get to set the direction on how NGG as an organization can help close the gap between us and Guatemala and our community around the world.